Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining the second round of presentations for Launch 2024. You are in the right spot if you're interested in learning more about taking a gap year, or if you're unsure what your plans are after you finish high school. Maybe you're wondering what your next step will be. Maybe you're wondering what options there are out there. So today we are very fortunate to have some former high school students, some alumni here, who are here to share with you their experiences, their advice, their wisdom, what they've gone through this year, having taken a gap year or having taken some time for themselves to pursue other passions after graduating high school. So we've got three panelists here today. I'll let you introduce yourselves and your stories. And this is meant to be an opportunity for you to ask questions of our guests and to learn from them. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over. Lucas, would you maybe like to start?
Yeah, for sure. I can tell a little bit about myself. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Lucas. I am, based in Ottawa. I'm 24 years old. I also took part in a gap year, like I think Sharu and Jonas here as well. My journey out of high school. I grew up in the west end of Ottawa. Went to Bell High School, then decided I would do a little gap year. I took a more structured approach, taking a gap year with this organization called Discover Year, and then decided to go to U Ottawa for business, did an exchange, and now I'm just working full time for the interim as a general manager at Escape Manor Hintonburg. It's one of our locations in Canada. And yeah, looking to do my master's soon, hopefully next year. But yeah, I just a little bit of background. We can delve into the details afterwards. But yeah, Sharu, Jonas, do either of you want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I can go next. Hi, everyone. My name's Sharu. So I grew up in Riverside South, so in the south part of Ottawa. And I graduated high school in 2023. But towards the end of my last year of high school, I started working at a robotics startup in Chicago. So I decided to take a gap year, do an internship for a bit. Worked in Chicago all of last year and then joined full time in September. And now I'm actually back at the University of Toronto, working full time at the robotics company as well. So I work on the partnership side of things. But yeah, that's a bit about me. I'll pass it on to Jonas.
Hey everyone, my name is Jonas. I actually grew up just outside Toronto, went to high school at a place called Mayfield. I took a gap year after because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do next, if I wanted to go to college or university. So what I did is me and a few of my buddies took a year and did a snowboard season in Banff, which was a lot of fun. Ended up staying there for a year and kind of discovered myself a little bit, found out what I liked, and sort of sorted it out from there. I can give you more details as we progress. All right, so good to go for the next part here. If we can, let me just look at some of the questions here. So I guess, Lucas, I can go to you and Sharu, and I'm looking at these. If you guys maybe just want to give a little bit of information as to what decisions you guys kind of did when you chose to take the year off and took you along those paths.
Yeah, for sure. So I remember being in high school in grade 11, grade 12. A lot of my peers really knew what they wanted to go into, or at least seemed that way. They kind of had everything, or it seemed that they had figured everything out. They knew I'm going to go to, Toronto University for this and this and this program. I'm going to graduate in 4 years, and then I'm going to have a job afterwards. Everything is going to be like laid out for me. I was not of the same opinion. Like I knew I wanted to go to university, but I didn't really know for what. Like I had a lot of different passions. I loved science. I loved history. But I knew just math probably wasn't like, the thing that really drew me to, university. And I knew that I wanted to maybe avoid that during my studies. I also knew that I wanted to travel a little bit before I went back to school full time. And I knew I wanted to, get some real job experience. so I was like a little bit conflicted. I hadn't, applied to any universities or anything like that throughout my last, when you have that application period and everyone's like getting everything done before January. Yeah, I didn't have anything set out. I said, okay, I'm going to take a gap year and I'm just going to figure it out. I'm going to have some more time. And I'm going to, maybe follow suit. My sister had done a gap year before. Anyway, so I did that, and then I heard about this one program called Discover Year from a friend of mine whose sister had participated in the program. It's a very structured approach where they traveled, they got a lot of like real life experience in interviewing and kind of going through the job search. Very multifaceted program with like volunteer experience and coaching, all sorts of different sessions. And that really, sounded like the complete package to me and my family. So we said, why not? Let's learn more about it. Let's do it. And I did that. I applied and then I got in, and that was kind of like my catalyst to then studying in Ottawa, going on exchange, and then finding a job here. That kind of really kickstarted it because I think taking a bit more of a structured approach, being able to find and build the skills to get a job and then kind of develop that to then figure out what I'm wanting to really study, just with some extra time. That really helped me a lot. A lot of people think like, you have to be on time. Everyone's kind of racing to complete, their studies. They're like, okay, I have to go directly from high school into university. But that's not always the case. And, you're not necessarily behind if you take a gap year. That's something I definitely realized. And I'm sure Jonas and Sharu can attest to that. You, if anything, probably go into university or college or whatever you're doing after high school, after taking a gap year with a little bit more maturity and perspective, I would say. So anyway, maybe you guys can lead into that.
I think Lucas is kind of spot on how I was feeling at the end of grade 12 as well, trying to figure out, what to do. Everyone seemed like they had a plan. So I was originally had the idea of going into medicine. So I started applying to a lot of life science programs, health science programs. And I didn't really, I even accepted my offer before I decided to just take a gap year. So the interesting thing with the University of Toronto was I accepted my offer to study life science. And then, that June, I started working. So then in September, when I got the return offer, I realized I wanted to do this. I want to work. I want to explore before I commit myself to life science and medicine as a whole, because, it's like such a long process. And because of that, I decided to defer by a year. And then what ended up happening was, like Lucas said, you're not necessarily behind by taking a gap year. So when I actually had to reapply because I wanted to switch my program. So then I reapplied and switched into business and finance. So I'm really happy that I was able to pivot, and that gap year is kind of what exposed me to the world of like business and like corporate America almost. But yeah, I think Lucas was spot on.
Yeah, I too had a similar experience where I was unsure, but I also did apply for schools. But I wasn't set in stone that I wanted to attend the next year. And similar to Lucas, I had well, my cousin and one of my best friend's older brothers took a gap year as well. And it seemed like a good decision for me before I rushed into paying for school and maybe not focusing as much as I should. So at that point, I decided, okay, I love snowboarding. I'm going to go do a season out in the hills. And because of that, I made some incredible friends. And then I decided to not actually go to any of the schools I initially had applied for, but to apply to a college out in BC because I loved the mountains. And then I ended up doing a diploma there. And now I'm back in Toronto getting a degree and considering master's or maybe teacher's college following that. But I too think that a gap year did make me grow as a human. And there was a lot of people who were in my program initially who didn't quite have the same level of maturity because they hadn't taken the time to go to it, to go to doing things on their own. So a lot of them might have been stuck more in like a party mode as opposed to taking school more seriously like a job, because it's no longer high school if you decide to go after. It's very much you got to make sure you're managing your own time. And also, I didn't know if I wanted to go into the trades as well. So I worked landscaping before. I have a bunch of buddies who are in the trades who have done extremely well for themselves. And I thought, okay, well, now's a good time to kind of see what I'd like to do. All right, guys, that was good for that part. Now, let's go to some challenges we all kind of faced along the way when it came to the first year starting off the gap year, whether it was during the Discover program or at your new robotics job or just whatever you found along the way.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, there are some questions in the chat. Do we want to kind of answer those as we go as well in between, or do we want to do those at the end? So I'm seeing one question, for example, can you apply for school, find out whether or not you get accepted, and then defer to the next year, or do you just want to wait for the next year of applicants? If we just want to tackle that, and then we can go on with the next thing. That makes sense for you, Jonas. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
cool.
Jonas, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry, my bad. Yeah, let's just tackle them as we go. Yeah, so you can
Yeah.
definitely defer after you're accepted. I think you have a year, and then
Yeah.
you can decide, and then you have to either reapply or apply to different programs. And then the next one's for you, Sharu. It's about how difficult was it to get into the life science program at U of T?
I honestly don't remember. I think, it's getting high grades was, I think, important, but I honestly don't remember. Yeah, but I think, yeah, high grades is always good, so it always helps.
Then the next question is, how do you take a gap year? We can further, I think we'll all go over our experiences a little more, but essentially it's just you're deciding not to go to school or hopping into a career of your choice. So let's say you wanted to be an electrician, if you just went right into that rather than taking the time to pursue something else or just learn a little bit about yourself. All right, so those are the questions done there. And now let's all go in. We'll start with you, Lucas, about some challenges you're facing,
for sure.
that you faced.
Yeah, for sure. So definitely some challenges I faced throughout this, these whole last 5-6 years. Number one being, what am I going to study? What is my plan after, high school, then university, then my gap year, essentially. So taking this 1 year to kind of mull things over and do some workshops and network was really valuable for me to kind of then realize what my plan of action really was. So when I took this gap year with Discover Year, we have, different kind of, there are different segments of the year. So the first being spent on job search, then a little bit of networking each week. There are also kind of workshops that you do with panelists coming in, people from various walks of life. Some people, like we even had the mayor sit in at one point before he was the mayor, which is pretty interesting. Some people like working for the government, some people were, some doctors, a lot of entrepreneurs as well. And I think the entrepreneurial aspect of it all really motivated me to study business. I just got a lot of, I really saw what it, took to create a startup. And I figured that would be like something that I might really enjoy at some point. And I figured, hey, why not use some of my skills that I currently have to then, utilize them in a business context. And I think in the end, it turned out really well. I was able to, take a little bit more time, during the last, months before January, to then really focus on my applications, which was kind of a challenge I was facing before. I felt like I didn't have time while I was studying, in high school. And I really wasn't understanding what the options were because there's such a plethora. I thought maybe I would even study abroad or something like that at some point. And just having that extra time, which was a challenge before, was definitely like super valuable for me. It was, yeah, definitely gave me a lot of perspective. And then like kind of going through life afterwards, there are some challenges you face in university. We can talk about those afterwards, but like, budgeting being a huge one, time management, huge, absolutely huge and necessary for you to succeed, especially, once you get that independence going out of high school, and you're, in a gap year, then you're going to university or college or doing whatever program you choose, that's when you have to kind of be your own, you need to hold yourself accountable to ensure that you're getting everything done. All those things that align with your goals, right?
All right, great. Shrew, on to you.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge for me, or not, I'd say one of the biggest was kind of the uncertainty of it all. So I didn't really know where my life was headed. I was like, am I going to go back to college? Am I going to do this? And what really, I think uncertainty is a good thing where you should have, keep an open mind. If I always like to say yes to any opportunity that I get. So, say yes to opportunities, take the chances. And that has really shifted my perspective. And then, there's also that pressure, I felt it a lot from my family. They're like, go to college or go to university, get a degree. And at the end of the day, it's your own life, right? So you're the one, living through it, every single day. So that really makes you realize, and then you have to understand, that your parents or your family also wants the best for you. So trying to find that balance is pretty hard and was kind of challenging for me. So there was a lot of times where I had to compromise with my parents, to allow me to kind of go work and take a gap year. In exchange, I'll come back and study as well. So it'll work out, and I think everything happens for a reason. But yeah.
Yeah. Similar to what you guys said, I think the initial uncertainty of what was to happen next was a big challenge for me because I knew for a while, at least for the last year, that I wanted to take a gap year and do a snowboard season, but I didn't know what was going to be next. So the whole time I was always thinking, I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? But I found the more connections I made in talking to other people who have already experienced more out of life in post-secondary, I kind of found a pathway that would work well for me. And also location ended up playing a big part in that as well, because school or work is always important, but you really do got to enjoy yourself as well. So the fact that I was able to balance that by moving to pursue post-secondary somewhere else also allowed me to enjoy myself while doing so, which was a challenge at first because I didn't know if I wanted to stay in Toronto or where I wanted to be located because I have family in the GTA and it would be hard being far away. All right, we got a bunch of questions, so let's field those now. We'll start at the top. First one is, what if you're still not sure, even after the gap year? Do you take another year if you can? All right, go the same order as before.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think you can do whatever the heck you want. If you want to take another gap year, go for it. All the power to you. I knew a lot of people or a few people from my program, from my graduation year, when I did this gap year, who went back to do another program, another gap year, kind of on their own, working, and then they went off to post-secondary. But it's your decision at the end of the day. I would say the majority of people will, after this year, have a good idea. But it might make sense for you to take another one. And who's to say that, you can't do whatever the heck you want?
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't have much more to say.
Yeah, same here. Lucas is spot on. Yeah.
All right, we'll go to the next one then. What is it like not to have a structure of school during the year, especially after having done school for so long? All right.
Do you guys want to
Yeah,
take this?
I can do this one. Start with this one. Yeah, it's a big challenge, especially when you got bills to pay and it's a whole new lifestyle. You're free from your parents, don't really know what to do. It took a little getting used to. I definitely wasn't the most budget savvy when I started out, and quickly came to realize that a paycheck coming every 2 weeks to pay rent, food, and have fun doesn't last as long as you'd like it if you're starting at a minimum wage job. So it does take a little getting used to, but as you do with everything else, you learn along the way, and it's always important to talk to your social network and other people who have experienced similar things. I think that helped me, especially talking to my older friends and cousins who had done similar stuff, just to have a better understanding of what I needed to do in order to succeed and not have to move back home right away.
Yeah, 100%. It's something that is a little bit tricky for everyone, I think, coming out of like a regimented, you're pretty much working what is it, in a 9 to 5 at school, maybe a little bit less than that, but you have every single day, which is almost the same, and your semesters, they may change a little bit in terms of course, like the courses and the load, but um, yeah, it's a little bit different once you get your university or college schedule, or once you have this program and so much free time for maybe a little bit until you find work or you come up with a proper plan, and that can be quite daunting, and can be a little bit, of a slippery slope if you're not, holding yourself accountable, as I kind of mentioned. Um, if you're not, staying disciplined and just actually like scheduling and ensuring that you're kind of staying on track and kind of aligning yourself to your goals. So, um, you just gotta kind of, make sure that you're still finding some structure and that you're still kind of sticking to somewhat of a routine, which can be a little bit difficult, but you learn and you adapt. So everyone kind of goes through it, I would say.
Yeah, I think, as you kind of enter the world, you'll make mistakes on your way, so you'll learn. And it is challenging at first, like you're going to school at 9 a.m., you finish at 2, and that's it. And like people are telling you what to do. And then, once you take a gap year, no one's really telling you, you got to do this, you got to do that. And you're just kind of on your own, which is nice. But like Lucas said, you need that accountability, or at least have a schedule or kind of like a to-do list, to make sure you're on track. So it is hard, but I think you'll get past that eventually.
Awesome.
So the
What
next
do we have
one
next? Yeah,
is,
sorry.
is there pre-health sciences in colleges? I don't know about that one.
I don't
Yeah,
either. Yeah.
I
If
would
you
be the wrong
chat
person
GPT
to
or
ask.
Google it, I think you'll be able to find it pretty quick, which
Yeah.
might help you along the way for looking at applying to those if that's what you're interested in. All right, so now the next one is, what did you do for your networking? I can start with this one. I feel like I just was trying to befriend everyone, go to anything I was invited to. Even if you don't know if you're going to hit it off with someone necessarily, if someone asks you to go for a coffee, or when you're all legal drinking age, go grab a beer. It's good to make those connections and enjoy yourself. Because you never know. Like, I have some friends now who are from Australia who are lifelong friends, or in the UK. And those networks definitely have helped me. Even my buddy, his family lives in Dubai. I've been talking to his friends there and looking at jobs after I'm done school. So we'll see. All right, Lucas,
Yeah. Yeah, I can chime in there. Networking was a really valuable part of my Discover Year. Again, the program I keep talking about. It was this, structured in a way that we would be meeting with all these different people from various backgrounds, here and there. Like, we'd have a panel of similar to this, but in person. One, 2 or 3 people who would kind of give us a little bit of a look into their daily lives, kind of their background and how they made it through, figuring out what they want to study, and then getting to where they are today, which was super cool. And then we had like little networking sessions here and there, where we'd be able to, like, ask them deeper questions, chat with them, and we could even add them to our, there's an emphasis on LinkedIn and building your network through these online tools and also in person, of course. So there's a lot of that, and I think that definitely prepared me for later on. Then in university, I was kind of able to apply these skills, and I tried to take as much initiative as I could to attend like networking events that the University of Ottawa would organize, and those were helpful as well. Like, just figuring ways to get out of your comfort zone. I think that's one of the best ways for you to grow, and some of these networking events kind of present themselves as that. So yeah, chat with, like, I kind of have the mentality of, like, saying yes to almost everything that makes sense. If someone asks you to have a coffee chat, as Jonas said, why not? Maybe you can help them out, maybe they can help you out in the end. A lot of it is like, you give and you get, and it's it can definitely benefit you to network and develop those skills.
Yeah, I think Lucas and Jonas kind of are spot on. For me personally, I was in more of like a sales kind of business role, so I would attend a lot of the trade shows, or events that were local. And you know, a lot of them were like double my age, so they had, you know, so much experience, and just asking people questions goes a long way. People love to tell them, you know, tell others about themselves as well. And you're just able to learn about other people's experiences. And it's a great way to get to know people. And like Lucas said, it applies in university as well. Now that I'm going to university, I find that I tend to be more outgoing than the other people here. And at the end of the day, we're all here to make friends. You know, a lot of people, it's their first time at university as well. And they're probably looking for friends as well, or just getting to know others. So like Lucas and Jonas said, you know, get out of your comfort zone, you know, say yes to kind of get to know people. And yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
Next question
We've got a lot
is,
of questions, so
yeah.
we skip some over. Some of them are similar. Maybe we just multiple people have something to say. We can, but also we'll run out of time, so maybe just one person chat. So first, can you take more than one gap year? Yes, you can. We've already done that one. Does taking a gap year affect your way to apply to college? So from my understanding, it's still the same process. The only thing is you need to make sure you have to get your transcript if you hadn't got it before, if you already hadn't deferred. So you just need to make sure you have that. I'm not sure if it was different for you guys, but
I think that was the same for me. I found that it may even help you a little bit because some of them require supplementals. So, you know, with the more experience, you can use your gap year as leverage almost to fulfill your supplemental. So I found my gap year to be really helpful kind of the second time around when I was applying for universities.
all right.
Yeah, 100% for me. So for myself as well. There was just you know, you can add like a testament of experience to your application. I think at least that's what Ottawa let me do. And even though I didn't have you know, some of the like one of the prerequisite calc courses, they just gave me a conditional offer because of my gap year experience.
And then how long was your gap year? I took one gap year and then I took another one in between college and university. You guys
I
each
took one. Yeah.
Yeah, I took one as well.
all right. When taking a gap year, can you extend it past a year in a way? Yep, we covered that one. How did your parents react? My parents were supportive. My parents didn't want me to waste money on school if I was going to end up dropping out, as many people do. They also would have been happy if I ended up doing the trades. I'm fortunate that way, though. They're actually both teachers too, so they do prioritize education, but they're also aware of the ever-changing world. Not sure for you guys.
Yeah, my parents were also supportive, and I was super thankful to them for that. It definitely helped. I think that my sister may have like paved the way in taking a gap year as well. But yeah, it's typically something there's some stigma about gap years. That's, you know, just the truth. People think that you should maybe rush, but why race other people when you can like benefit in other ways significantly and still end up where your peers are, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, at first my parents were kind of against it. They were just, you know, it wasn't something that they were expecting. You know, I was always talking about going to university. So now that I was taking a gap year, they were kind of against it at first, but then eventually they became supportive. And, you know, the deferred admission really helps because it was like my spot was guaranteed the year after. So worst case, I go back and, you know, I'm in university. So in the end, it worked out.
All right. And then the next one is, did you apply for a program before or after your gap year? So I think we all applied before, correct? Yeah.
I actually, well, not, I applied during my gap year. So
During your gap year? Okay.
Yeah, I did both as well, before and during.
Okay. If you decide to take a gap year and apply the next year, will the university look at your grade 12 midterm marks or just your final marks? I'm not sure, to be honest. If you defer, they'll just look at the same thing as they did the year before. I would imagine it would be your final marks, though, probably not your
Yeah, I think it is your final marks if you take the gap year at least, right? But if you know, do your deferral, then for sure it could be a different story.
Yeah, I guess you're already accepted, so it doesn't really matter if you're deferred. What was the best skill that you learned during your gap year? Can you take more than one gap year? Did that? Are there any courses you can take while still in your gap year? You can definitely take courses online, whether it's on Google or any supplementary courses rather than in school. Skills I learned on my gap year were definitely my like emotional intelligence level got better for sure. And my social skills, as I was fairly young and a lot of my friends were older, made me feel more comfortable depending on different scenes that I was in.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I definitely just grew in confidence significantly. Part of it was due to like traveling. I traveled to Vietnam by myself, and traversed it like with a motorbike for quite some time, which was nuts. But that definitely helped me grow in confidence. So the traveling aspect of it all. And then just figuring out that I could just land a job on my own. Granted, being given some of these skills with workshops that we developed at Discover Year. But yeah, like figuring out how to structure a resume and then going out and just giving it to an employer and being successful, like landing some jobs, that was pretty cool to me. And I think that was definitely one of the most useful ways to kick off my gap year.
Yeah, I think for me as well, confidence was a huge thing. You become way more confident, living alone, making your own decisions. So that was a huge thing. And I'd say like sales really helps because, at the end of the day, you're selling yourself at like a job interview or, you're going to sell something. So those were like the two major skills that I've learned during my gap year.
Nice. The next question is, what do you suggest doing on your gap year? Traveling, I think, is a great way to do it, or just look for different job experiences. I feel like you two can attest to that. It doesn't really matter what you do, as long as you're not just sitting around on a couch watching Netflix for the whole year. Making life experiences, I think, is most valuable. If you guys want more things to field on that, feel free. Otherwise, we can keep going.
Yeah, for sure. No, I definitely agree with that. And I just want to say, like, getting comfortable being uncomfortable is probably like, the motto that I love and that I think, just kind of sums it all up. Just doing a lot of things that kind of push you at your comfort zone, I think will help you grow a lot. And travel and, just work experience and, meeting new people, making friends, that will all benefit you so much.
Exactly. I think they're spot on. Get out of your comfort zone.
All right. So the next thing is, for those who traveled, how was the transition to the first year of university after not studying subjects for the last year? It was a bit challenging getting back into the swing of things, but for the most part, it's kind of like riding a bike, I found. Once you're fully immersed and make sure you have it structured. After like 2 months, I was good. The first 2 months, I think if I would have been in college or university either way, I would have struggled, if not more so, because I hadn't been on my own, having to like work. But you do get used to it fairly quickly. Just make sure you make meetings to stay on track, make a calendar, or at least that was my perspective.
Yeah. I agree. Honestly, like after a year of working minimum wage jobs and kind of being in limbo a little bit, I still had that structure and I was doing a lot of things, but I knew I wanted to go back to university and I knew I wanted to make friends in university. I'd always heard about that experience, right? It's something you can't really find elsewhere. So yeah, that kind of motivated me to come back, and I was just super excited about that whole thing. A lot of people think, hey, you're gonna leave high school, you're gonna do a gap year and you're not gonna go back to any sort of post-secondary education. I don't think that's true for the most part. Most people end up doing something else. Yeah, just because it's like the extra experience that people are looking for, and they've always kind of romanticized and looked for at some point in their life. So, anyways, I had no issues. It was just kind of adapting again to a different structure and a different routine. But again, you adapt and you make it work.
Same here. I think Jonas and Lucas kind of covered it. I'm kind of in that transition period still. So I only went back to school like 2 months ago. So it has been challenging, but like riding a bike, you're gonna fail some stuff here and there, but it's not the end of the world. And you just gotta adapt and keep going.
Yeah, I failed my first pre-cal course in first year. So
Yeah.
things happen. I didn't fail one after that. It was a learning experience. And so you pivot and you move on.
Yeah, you
So,
just keep going.
Exactly.
We have a lot of questions, so we're definitely not going to get to all of them. If one of you'd like to maybe field one of the questions at the top, and I'll look through to see what's been asked the most, and then I'll ask after you guys answer it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so would you say taking a gap year has hindered your education at all? No, not at all. I would never say that. It just opened my eyes, if anything, to
Yeah.
the options I had, and I think it just gave me way more perspective. Okay.
Sorry. Oh, yeah.
I think there's a lot of questions on financing a gap
Yeah.
year,
I
or like the
worked
cost.
a
Yeah, same
lot.
here.
Yeah,
Like
same.
before in high school, I worked always. That year I worked full time. It's definitely not, well, at least from, it sounds like all three of our perspectives, we didn't have like parents' money funding the year for us. I wish I did, but,
Actually, one thing about Discover Year, the program we are actually like an accredited program. So like you can actually use an RESP to pay for it. But what I did during my gap year is I worked full time, and that's kind of the goal of the program. So anyway, it depends on like what gap you're doing, but there are options.
I see one here where it says, how do you save money to travel and do a gap year? A lot of people also take gap years and do like, not an exchange because you're not in school, but let's say you go to Australia and you just work there for the year and do it that way. Or if you go to Vietnam, like Lucas, I went there as well when I was younger and it was very affordable. You don't need that much money. It's just getting there is the expensive part. Should I be worried about losing what I've learned in high school over my gap year in terms of this? I would say no. As long as you're just brush up on stuff. If it's something you're interested in, you already are planning on going to school for, your memory's stronger than you think.
Exactly. And you're gonna do some like brush up introductory kind of courses in your first year. If no matter the program, like there's gonna be a segue, so you'll be fine.
I have another one here. What if you don't know what you want to do after a couple gap years? That's okay. Just maybe work, keep going. And sometimes it takes a long time for people to figure out what they do. Like I'm 28. I'm finally now realizing I want to be a teacher, but it took a long time for that. I also have a business on the side and I'm still even not 100% sure. I'm applying to some master's programs and thinking about maybe going into sales because I've done that and I really enjoy it. And then that was another one. Sorry, there's so many questions, guys. Apologize, we're not going to be able to get to all of you today, but thanks for asking them all. Another one here is, how do you start getting experience and start immersing yourself in the communities? That's one that's probably, I feel like just, again, as we said a little bit earlier, just say yes to people, go to events. You can always go online too if you're just in a different area and you moved. You can join clubs or sports teams, whatever you're interested. Also, different threads on the internet. It's easy to find little communities there. Make sure they're nice ones because the internet can be a bit daunting sometimes. But yeah. I don't see any more here that are that different that I think we'll have time to field. How did you plan your gap year? I planned it with some buddies. That was my experience. What about you two?
Mine was
Sure.
yeah, I was kind of thrown into it almost. So in June I started working and it was like an internship, so I didn't know where that was going. So in July, August, I was still planning to go back in September. But then around mid-August, I got the return offer for full time. So then at that point, I had to make the decision to stay full time and work. So that's when, I think UFT is pretty generous. Like your deferred thing is like till the end of August, I believe, or early September, so you can defer it. So I was lucky in that sense. And then I still didn't make up my mind, so I just kept working, and I was like even debating like whether I should apply again. But again, I just kept an open mind. I decided to apply again. And then even deciding to come back to school was pretty last minute. So mine wasn't that structured, but because I had a job where I could support myself, I kind of had that fallback option, but where I could, afford to not plan it out. But I would definitely try to plan it out ahead of time if possible.
Yeah. I think I just had the benefit of having more of a structured approach. So
Yeah.
yeah, we had to kind of it's a program and it's a 1-year program. You do pay a little bit for it, but you end up getting so much out of it, very valuable, and you end up financing it while you're working. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a win-win. But yeah, like you can still kind of take your own liberties like during that. They cater to you, and you decide essentially what you want to do. Nothing is really like fully set in stone for you.
All right, guys. Well, that's our time for today, I believe. Thanks for everyone who came out. Lucas and Shrew, it was nice meeting you two as well.
Yeah, nice to meet you as well. Thanks.
Nice to meet you as well. Thank you.
I'm not sure. Ramsey?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Lucas, Jonas, Sharu, thank you both so much. Very impressed listening to you. As someone who also did not go to post-secondary right away after high school, I can't say enough positive things about taking some time before moving on. Really, really appreciate you being here. And to all our attendees today, thank you for your questions. Don't forget after this session to visit the booths that are in the launch website. You can go check out the exhibitor booths between now and the next session. And don't forget, there's also a survey in the VFairs website to let us know how to make this better moving forward and if you have any feedback. Again, gentlemen, thank you so much for giving up your time to be here. Very, very much appreciated. Have a good rest of the day.
All right. Take care,
Awesome.
guys.
Thanks
Thanks.
for having us.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care, guys.
Bye.